We are now seeing stunning new video of those massive explosions that rocked the Lebanese capital of Beirut today. The Israeli military says the strikes were aimed at Hezbollah's top leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Now, it's not known if he was injured or killed at this time yet, as rescue crews search through the rubble. We have a team of correspondents in the region right now. Jeremy Diamond is with us in Tel Aviv, but let's first begin with CNN's Ben Wiedemann in Beirut. Ben, what are you learning about these strikes and the casualties?
Well, the casualty figures, Danny, are very preliminary. At this point, the Ministry of Health is saying 2 dead, 76 injured. Now, we're outside the Rafiq Hariri Hospital in Beirut, where we've seen a variety of injuries arrive already. And it is expected, given that this bombing flattened 6 buildings in a very, very crowded part of Beirut, that the death toll inevitably will rise. As far as whether Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, was killed or not, we still don't know. I have been trying to call and message my Hezbollah contacts. Nobody is answering. Obviously, the group is in a state of crisis at this point when you consider what has happened since Tuesday of last week with the pager attacks, the walkie-talkie attacks, a series of targeted strikes on Beirut, killing senior commanders, and of course, starting on Monday, this Israeli bombing campaign of shock and awe that has killed over 600 people in the last 5 days. Now, as I said, this was an area of town very crowded, and it's not, the Israelis are claiming that they're underground. There was a Hezbollah command headquarters. This we don't know, but at this point we know that obviously nerves are on edge. The United Kingdom has announced that it's putting on additional flights to fly out British nationals from Lebanon, who the government in London has already urged all British nationals to leave. We understand that security has been beefed up outside the U.S. Embassy, and we got an announcement from the Iranian embassy here in Beirut saying that this strike, in its words, changed the rules of the game and is vowing revenge for this strike. And even if Hassan Nasrallah was not killed, this basically is another psychological blow to a group that until recently took pride in what it thought was its tight internal security. What we've seen with the pager attacks, the walkie-talkie attacks, that clearly their communications, their internal intelligence has been severely compromised. Danny?
Ben Wiedemann, thank you very much for that report. Let's go now to Jeremy Diamond. He's in Haifa, Israel. These strikes came shortly after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered that combative speech at the UN where he threatened Iran and vowed to continue these attacks, or his attacks rather, on Hezbollah and Hamas. Jeremy, what message do you think Israel is sending in this latest strike?
Well, there is no question that today's strike marks a significant escalation by Israel in this nearly year-long conflict with Hezbollah, following a series of escalatory actions by Israel over the course of the last week and a half or so. We have seen since those pager attacks that Israel has consistently been going one rung up the ladder almost every single day as it looks to intentionally escalate this conflict and to try and de-link it effectively from the war in Gaza. While Hezbollah has said that they would stop firing rockets on northern Israel should Israel stop the war in Gaza, Israeli officials believe that this is the better strategy to get Hezbollah to stop firing rockets, to effectively beat Hezbollah back into submission, to stop them from firing rockets in northern Israel, and to restore security there, where some 60,000 Israeli residents have been displaced from their homes. An Israeli security official telling me tonight that indeed Hassan Nasrallah was the target of this strike, but I'm told that at this hour the Israeli military is still conducting what's known as a battle damage assessment to determine whether or not Nasrallah was actually killed in this strike. What is clear, though, as Admiral Daniel Hagari, the Israeli military spokesman, announced this evening, the Israeli military went after what they describe as Hezbollah's underground headquarters beneath residential buildings in the southern suburbs of Beirut. And when you look at the power of this explosion and the Israeli strategy that we have seen being employed in Gaza, this suggests the use of very heavy munitions, potentially those 2,000-pound bombs that are used to penetrate targets deep underground, but that leave in their wake enormous civilian casualties. And in this case, we have seen 6 different buildings, according to Lebanese state news agency, that have been flattened in this strike. The death toll expected to continue to rise. And these strikes clearly putting this region very, very much on edge, escalating the situation even further, where it seems almost difficult to imagine how this region and how this conflict between Israel and Hezbollah can be turned away from all-out war.
And Jeremy, before you go, we couldn't help but notice behind you, it seemed like there was perhaps rocket fire in the air. I know you were speaking with us, but can you give any clarity on what might have been happening in the background of your shot there?
You know, I haven't. I'm hearing things very distantly. I don't think we've gotten. Yeah, we did actually just get some rocket sirens just north of us. I'm just looking at this red alert siren app. Yes, in the area of Carmiel, which is just to the northeast of us, and so that may be what you were seeing. This is now the second barrage of rocket fire that we have seen, likely from Hezbollah, coming into northern Israel. The first barrage was towards a town called Safed, where the Israeli military's northern command is based. And I'm now hearing those booms in the distance. Obviously, you see these interceptions before you can actually hear them. But you're right. If you guys were seeing that on my screen, those were likely rocket interceptions. Again, as we expect that following this very significant strike in the Lebanese capital, targeting and potentially, although we do not know yet, having killed or injured Hezbollah's leader, I think we can safely expect that Hezbollah will continue to fire more barrages of rockets. The question is, how much further will they go? Israeli officials had been anticipating, in the event of a serious escalation, that you would see Hezbollah fire hundreds of rockets simultaneously. We have not yet seen that, but perhaps now we will. Danny?
Jeremy Diamond, thank you very much for that report. Please stay safe where you are. Thank you.
Update now. This coming to us from the Reuters news agency that Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah is alive. This is the Reuters news agency citing a source close to Hezbollah that the Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah is alive. Now, this is important because all we have had from the Israeli statement is that this was a precision strike. That's how they've described it. But they didn't mention specifically who was being targeted. We have had several targeted assassinations over the course of many weeks and many months. In fact, there was one just earlier this week in the same area in Dahia that targeted the head of Hezbollah's drone unit, and there were several missiles fired during the course of that attack. But it is very important that there is this statement now from the Reuters agency citing a source close to Hezbollah that the Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah is alive.
CNN national security analyst Beth Sanner joins us now. So, Beth, our Jim Sciutto just reported that a former senior Israeli official says that the Israeli military must have been sure that the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was there in those apartment buildings. But now Israel appears to be warning that there might be more strikes to come. We still don't know if Nasrallah is dead. What do you make of it all?
They are trying to basically eliminate now all of the Hezbollah leadership that might be in that neighborhood that is the center of power for Hezbollah. They wiped out 6 buildings from what I'm hearing from CNN reporting, along with the headquarters building. And now, they want to clean up, basically. This is their opportunity, as they see it, to really decapitate the entire Hezbollah political as well as the military leadership that they have already eliminated almost all of the top leaders.
U.S. officials say that Israel did not give the White House what they would qualify as a heads up on this strike. Planes were already in the air, they say. What do you make of that and the kind of terse way Secretary Austin described the lack of communication and the lack of American buy-in, he seemed to imply, in this strike?
Well, I'm shocked, Jake.
Right.
Why would they tell us? Why would they tell us when, what are we going to say? And in some ways you wonder, what would we have said? We would have said, don't do that. And then they would have done it anyway. So, we are really at a point where it's obvious that the United States, and I would say this would be true no matter who was in the White House, but Israel is going to do what Israel is going to do. And yet, I think that we also have to remember that while Israel is determined to do these things because they see these as existential threats, they don't control, a part of their country because of what Hezbollah chose to do after October 7th. So they're doing this. And, but at the same time, no matter who's in the White House, I believe, and certainly this administration is not going to leave Israel out to hang them out to dry. We will be there to defend them. And, that is having a deterrent effect right now on Iran, and it certainly has on Hezbollah.
The strike happened right after Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and Netanyahu threw cold water on a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. What message is Netanyahu sending to America, to President Biden here?
Well, I think the message is, look, we're just going to do what we're going to do. And, they know that they're isolated and they don't care, because this is too important to them. I do think that there's an expectation that we will be there to do cleanup on aisle 7 if, no matter what happens. And I think that's true, but I also think that it's not very much of a good relationship when that's the case. And so there's damage to this relationship. And I don't know how far it goes. I don't think it means we're abandoning Israel anytime soon, but there is certainly a palpable sense of distrust right now.
You heard, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, but Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska, who is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, also a colonel in the Marines, he blamed a lot of this on the Biden administration lessening, weakening, in his view, the deterrence that the Trump administration had set up against Iran. In his view, and that of, I've heard a lot of Republicans say this, the Biden administration hoping to have more of a rapprochement with Iran, hoping to maybe have another Iran deal, releasing some of the funds that were frozen in exchange for hostages being held in Iran. All of this, in his view, emboldening Iran to send funding and encourage its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, to attack Israel as they have been doing. What do you think of that argument?
I think it's half true. I think that the Biden administration does not have an effective deterrent strategy related to Iran, although I think we've seen that they've gotten over the idea of having some kind of nuclear JCPOA deal with Iran 2.0, that they abandoned that, a long time ago. But I think it's unfair to say that Trump had been effective in deterring Iran over the long run. The Soleimani hit was an important one, but deterrence isn't about one thing. It is about consistent policy, follow through, and the sense that you will hold your enemy to account for going over your red lines. President Trump didn't do that when he decided to end a retaliatory strike just as it was about to go off, especially because that became public. So, I don't think that any administration has had a very solid Iran policy for decades, and it's hard, right? It's easy for us to sit on the outside and say, like, you guys suck, but it's hard.
Yeah, Beth Sanner, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let's go now to our team of correspondents across the region. We have CNN's Ben Wiedemann, who is in Beirut, and Jim Sciutto is in Tel Aviv. And Jim, we just mentioned briefly with Beth Sanner. Tell us more about this new reporting on Israel's intent to target the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah.
Well, I'm told, Jake, that Israel had a very high degree of certainty that Hassan Nasrallah was on that location, in that location, when it carried out this massive strike. A former senior Israeli official tells me the following, and I'm quoting, Israel would not have attacked with such scope and power if it was not sure, with a very high degree of certainty, that the ultra-terrorist was there, the ultra-terrorist, the description there of Hassan Nasrallah. So clearly communicating, Israelis clearly communicating that they believe their intelligence was sound when they carried out this attack. And Jake, we should note their track record in recent weeks. A number of senior Hezbollah commanders taken out via airstrikes, and of course this enormous attack on Hezbollah pagers that injured thousands of Hezbollah fighters and militants and operatives and took out their communication system. So one thing that has been clear through these recent weeks is Israel has quite good intelligence penetration of Hezbollah and its networks, including, I'm told, human sources of intelligence. And they believe that their intelligence on this massive strike was good prior. They have not yet confirmed that Nasrallah was injured or killed in this strike, but they do believe with a very high degree of certainty that he was there at this location when this strike happened.
Ben Wiedemann in Beirut. CNN weapons experts say that Israel likely used 2,000-pound bombs in this strike. Give us a sense of the scale of destruction and where exactly these, I believe it's 6 buildings that were flattened, where these buildings are in terms of the city of Beirut.
Yeah, they're, of course, in the southern suburbs where Hezbollah has a strong presence. Southern suburbs that are also densely populated. In fact, we drove by that area this afternoon as we were returning from South Lebanon and saw, actually into the evening, saw a huge plume of smoke still rising from the scene. Now, in addition to 2,000-pound bombs, they're talking about bunker busters as well, flattening 6 buildings. And even though the Lebanese Ministry of Health until now has still put the death toll at 2 with 76 injured, the assumption is that it will be much higher given how densely populated that part of the city is. Now, at this moment, there seems to be an exodus of people out of that part of Beirut where hundreds of thousands of people live, because the Arabic spokesman for the Israeli military has put out a tweet warning people to leave 3 buildings in 2 neighborhoods of the southern part of Beirut and an area of 500 meters around them. The message is quite grim. It says, if you are near interests belonging to Hezbollah, for your safety and the safety of your loved ones, evacuate immediately and go at least 500 meters away. So the anticipation is that in the coming hours, we may see more such similar strikes in southern Beirut. And I should stress that I've been trying to get in touch with Hezbollah contacts since we heard of this strike in Beirut. They're not answering messages and they're not answering calls regarding the fate of Hassan Nasrallah. Jake?
All right, Ben Wiedemann in Beirut, Jim Sciutto in Tel Aviv. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. Both of you, please stay safe. Another big story we're following. Vice President Kamala Harris arriving in Arizona, a big battleground state. She's